This is Corporate Warrior, high-intensity training lifestyle and business with Lawrence Neal, helping you improve your health and physique, become a great personal trainer, and start and grow your hit business.
This episode is brought to you by ARX, the most innovative, efficient, and effective all-in-one exercise machines I have ever seen. I was really impressed with my ARX workout. The intensity and adaptive resistance was unlike anything I've ever experienced. I love how the machine enables you to increase the negative load to fatigue target muscles more quickly, and I love how the workouts are effortlessly quantified. The software tracks maximum force output, rate of work, total amount of work done, and more in front of you on screen, allowing you to compete with your previous performance to give you and your clients real-time motivation. The ARX uses a computer-controlled motor to give you the exact amount of resistance your clients need 100% of the time. This means that the resistance can never become dangerous, is intuitive and simple to use, and can provide you with all of the results you and your clients are looking for in a fraction of the time. ARX is highly effective and efficient in delivering all of the benefits of exercise, including increased strength, muscle mass, cardiovascular conditioning, bone mineral density, and injury recovery. As well as being utilized by many high-intensity trainers to deliver highly effective and efficient workouts to their clients, ARX comes highly recommended by world-class trainers and brands, including Bulletproof, Tony Robbins, and Ben Greenfield Fitness. To find out more about ARX and get $500 off install when you place an order, please go to arxfit.com and mention Corporate Warrior in the How Did You Hear About Us field. So again, to get $500 off install when you order, head on over to arxfit.com and enter Corporate Warrior in the How Did You Hear About Us field. Lawrence Neal here, and welcome back to corporatewarrior.co. Today's guest is Andrei Yakovenko. You can find out more about Andrei over at newelementtraining.com and email him at info@newelementtraining.com. Originally from the Ukraine, Andrei immigrated to Canada 20 years ago with less than $5 in his pocket. Determined to succeed, he built a successful career as a partner in a geophysics business, and years later came across Body by Science. And after putting it into practice with a group of friends, Andrei saw profound physical changes and began learning all about high-intensity strength training, even traveling to Kieser training over in Zurich and meeting Werner Kieser. He discovered how HIIT had the power to transform lives, including his own, and a discovery turned into a passion which Andrei could not ignore. He decided to leave his high-paid career in geophysics and set up New Element Training, a high-intensity training studio in Toronto, Canada, that specializes in mindful strength training. Andrei was inspired by several of his clients, including a filmmaker, Barnett Bain, who mentioned that a major benefit of the training is how it allows him to de-stress his mind while he strengthens his body. He found that the strength training approach, training method, and the design concept, which promotes a quiet, focused workout session, was ideal for practicing mindfulness while working out, and so mindful strength training was born. Since Andrei started to explore the ways of living a more mindful life, he became more relaxed and less judgmental about both people and situations. It's changed the way he approaches business decisions, making them less about the bottom line, as number-based decisions are often based on fear and short-term outcomes, and more about the needs of people who have come to rely on their training approach to help them lead healthier lives. It has also influenced decisions about how they select personal trainers and therapeutic caregivers, favoring those who truly have a passion for helping others. This has led to more word-of-mouth referrals and a growing excitement about the outcomes of the New Element Training approach. In this podcast, we talk about Andrei's story, his career background, how he discovered high-intensity training, which is very funny, actually, because it's not the first time I've heard someone pick up Body by Science and completely and radically change their career and decide to pursue some kind of high-intensity training business, as it seems to ignite an enormous amount of passion in us when we discover things like high-intensity strength training. We talk about mindfulness strength training and how you can implement it into your own workouts for better results in both mind and body. This was really cool. It's not the first time I've talked about or experienced an element of mindfulness and meditation in high intensity training. I think I probably talked about it a bit on the podcast before. And I think many of you probably know what I'm talking about and just how much high intensity training does often feel like meditation and the benefits that come from that. And then lastly, we talk about the Med-X machine industry. So New Element Training has a huge Med-X and Delphex equipment range with around 31 pieces, including 4 medical machines. And I'm kind of in the process of, which is delayed a little bit, but I'm in the process of doing some research to find out what machines we may be able to acquire for a facility here where I am in Galway. And so I was interested in talking to Andrei about his knowledge around the Med-X market, which is quite confusing because, I was getting conflicting reports about whether they were producing machines or not, and then getting a bit confused by organizations like Delphex over in Europe, who seem to be producing machines that are very similar to Med-X. And I wasn't sure if they were the same or different. And so Andrei, who has a very broad knowledge on this particular subject, helped to clarify the state of Med-X production, availability, and the different brands out there who are providing these machines. So if you're interested in figuring out how you can acquire Med-X for your business, then this might be very useful and interesting to you. Quick caveat, I did record this 5 or 6 months ago. Sorry, Andrei. And at that time, I was doing bodyweight training. So just bear that in mind in the context of the recent episodes. So they are a little bit out of order. And you might be thinking, why is he saying that? He said this more recently in another episode. So I am getting to the point now where all of the episodes will be back in chronological order, which is a bit of a mistake I made, but I just want to let you know in case you're a bit confused in relative to the context of the other episodes that you may have listened to. To get the show notes to this, please go to corporatewarrior.co/Andrei, Andrei. And now, without any further ado, I give you Andrei Yakovenko. Andrei, welcome to the show.
Hi, Lawrence. I'm so grateful to be here.
I am grateful that you're taking the time out of your day to be on the show. It's great. So, we've spoke a bit before. I know a little bit about you and your business and your background, but you've got quite an interesting story. And before we get into the way you do things at your business, I'd love to hear more about you. So your accent, your name, people are going to be thinking, where's this guy from? So tell me about, what's your origin story? Where are you originally from?
Okay, so actually, before I tell my story, I'd like to say again that just being on your podcast, I'm so grateful. All the who is who of high intensity training being on this show, that essentially responsible for me even to have this place and talking to you. So it's such a privilege to be invited to share my story and story of my business.
Thank you so much.
So personally, I originally from Ukraine. I left it in 1995 when I was 20 years old. And I've been living in Canada for the past 20 years. When I came here, I used to have a background in scuba diving, so I thought I was going to do something, teaching some scuba diving locally, but then kind of Canada is not the best place to teach scuba diving. Eventually end up actually funny. I was kind of an outdoor guy, wasn't so much computer guy and stuff like that. And I suggested my wife once that maybe I could take some sort of computer programming classes in the college, and she laughed in my face. Are you kidding? It's not for you. So then, reverse psychology, of course, I had to prove her wrong. Next thing you know, I was, taking university level, Bachelor of Science in computer science. But then I did pretty well in it. However, I did realize it wasn't my thing. So then I slowly shifted to study archaeology, geology, and end up doing a graduate level study in geophysics. So in the end, I ended up building a career in field of geophysics. It's called airborne geophysics, where we put small sensors on small aircrafts, helicopters, and just fly close to the ground, collect some data, process, give it to the client. I did very well in that industry. I was a partner in my company, kind of the guy in charge of essentially North America. But then I just found myself doing the same thing for the 1,000th time, was something over and over and over. And like part deep inside me, I knew that like I still wanted to do something completely on my own. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to test what it feels like, jump into the deep water and see if I can swim. So for about a year, it really bugged me every day. And I just try to subside it, try to ignore it. You made it. You're making good money. You have house. You have 3 kids, family. Just keep what you have. But after a year, I just realized it just was going to drive me crazy. It wouldn't go away. So one morning I show up to work and I just resigned. Like no plan B, no plan C. I just decided that I needed to walk away and do something completely on my own. At that time, I already been introduced to the concept of high intensity strength training. I used to go to a gym, try to work out like everybody else, multiple times a week, multiple sets. And I get pretty decent results. I've been doing it for a few years. But that kind of rational side of me was looking, what is the actual science of building muscle? And a year prior to resigning, I discovered Body by Science. And I was kind of browsing on the ebook that I gave my wife for Christmas present, and just has few days off. And I'm just so I'm looking for a good book to read on the science of building muscle. And, magically came across Body by Science. And this is the last time I worked out as a regular person. So I double checked all the cited reference papers, so did more due diligence, and decided to give it a try. Convinced a couple of my colleagues at work to train that way. And essentially for about a year, we would push each other for once a week, typical Body by Science. I had Big 5, Big 10, combination of some free weights and a little machine. We had a place at my old work. And I saw dramatic changes in one of my colleagues who kind of a typical programmer, about 40 years of age. I don't think he has ever been to gym, completely out of shape. Within a year, the guy had six-pack, triceps, shoulders, chest, completely transformed his body. So at that stage, I knew it wasn't anymore theoretical. I knew it was real. And at the same time, going through that thing in my head, trying to do something on my own, and was just, if I gonna do something, I like to do something with this. And I found spending pretty much all of my free time reading articles of Arthur Jones, studying, his work, and I realized that was my passion. This is I wanted to do, and there was for sure a market for it. And then once I walked away, I sold my shares, had a bit of cash. At the same time, I started talking to Werner Kieser from Kieser Training, the Swiss-based franchise. Extremely nice guy, super helpful. He kind of mentored me in the beginning of this project. At one point, I decided to actually fly to Zurich and check some of the locations. I did that, and the moment I checked, and they just rebuilt some of those locations in Zurich. They were virtually brand new. So you're walking in this bright hardwood floor, 80 Medex, sparkling Medex machines, and it's, stuff that is, the stuff that is so friendly to the clients, like they say, and this one lady, she had a gray hair, did a neck exercise, and, she observed me talking to the instructors, and she came to me saying, this is the best gym in town. And I just wow, so I knew that I wanted to be part of it, and I was hoping that one day somebody is going to have a class going to tell me that thing about my place, and since then I've heard it multiple times that we are the best place in town. That kind of put me on this path. After opening this place, wasn't an easy journey, still not easy, but doing something for the very first time. I never had a personal training session in my life, never started a business completely on my own, let alone gym business. So everything I know pretty much been self-taught, just experiential. And in fact, the whole interview we'll be talking about is most of it what I'm learning myself. So it came from my own experience that works for me. That's pretty much it. interestingly, a couple of years ago, what helped me a lot to maintain my sanity, and because the overheads are not cheap, and supporting family not cheap as well. So there's continuous stress in keeping the lights on and making sure that there is enough to support the family and all that kind of stuff. And one of my new clients, Bernard Bain, who also is a Hollywood award-winning producer, director, author, such an amazing person. He introduced me to this idea of being present. You have a bill to pay, and being present means, well, you look at it, can you pay the bill now? Yes. You go pay the bill. Can you pay the bill now? No. You put the bill aside and go stay present, do whatever you're doing right now in this moment. So it's kind of in a nutshell, but it's much more sophisticated than that. And that slowly allowed me to sort of have an ease in my life, just kind of be more present and not to worry what's going to happen, next and next and next and the next month. And and I became kind of a big fan of this idea of being present in life. And at one point I realized, our place is already quiet. There's no music, no distractions, a focused workout environment. You can practice it during your workout. And I started doing it, and the workouts actually got so much more pleasant. And I've noticed the time under load in those clients that were open-minded to try this method also started to increase. And it was all fine. But the issue with, and this is I've learned just maybe 6 months ago, so is much more deeper than that. You can't be present from the head. And that's I've been trying for 2.5 years, why I want to be present. And the key is trying. When you try to be present, you can't be, because you're trying from your head. It's only about 6 months ago when I was introduced to Philip Shepard, who is really one of the few people probably in the world who truly lives his life in the present. And through his work, I understood what it actually means. And you cannot understand it through learning facts. You can only understand it essentially experientially. You can only feel it. And now our so-called mindful cues during the workout are so much better than they used to be. And we get to the level where it changes clients and our relationship is exercise from doing this form of high intensity training to failure and essentially having, a negative relationship with it. And you only can do it once a week, twice a week, even that, because, it's such a psychological trauma to go and push yourself through that discomfort, to experience where you're actually looking forward to it. It's such a dramatic and revolutionary change in how one can experience this form of exercise. So I know I started to maybe talk a little bit too much from telling my story, but maybe let's take a little break and see if you have any questions, and then your turn, and then I'll explain it a little bit more, because I feel I can just keep going for a while.
No, it's actually interesting because I've got some notes here, and you're pretty much knocking them off in chronological order, which is actually incredibly helpful. I can just sit back and enjoy it. No, but it's interesting what you're saying, and I will just mention a few things. It's funny. I occasionally have a bad habit of thinking about my next question while the guest is talking, which is a terrible thing to do because then you don't always take in what they're saying. So I made a point before speaking to you of obviously with this theme of mindfulness and being present. I thought, right, my goal is to be as present as possible during this entire conversation. And I think I'm doing all right. But on your point, this is interesting because I think the mindfulness of high intensity strength training, the mindfulness aspect of it is something that's very familiar with a lot of people who've been doing this training for a long period of time. Things that come to mind. I remember Jay Vincent saying to me that when he trains, he closes his eyes, right? So lots of people that do that, when they get to that real intense, challenging part of the set, they'll just sink into it and really, really focus on that kind of mind-muscle connection and try and be present. I think that is something that we all learn to do, or most of us learn to do over time. And even in my workout, which is primarily bodyweight right now, I try and take that focus in every single workout. And to your point, it absolutely helps with performance, and it makes it far more enjoyable and easier to get through those really tough parts of the workout. So no, I think it's excellent. I think it's genius that you've taken this and really thought about how you can improve on it in your own business with your clients, and then actually use it as part of what makes you unique, which is pretty clever. So no, please elaborate on this part of your business. Yeah.
So yeah, in fact, it's becoming one of the top value propositions. And I know it's paradoxical, but you can enjoy it. And okay, so explain to you in the way. So this is how one can approach to enjoy it. Where it comes from is the key is to focus on the experience versus trying to supervise the movement to the next step. So, I'm going to maybe show a little bit, explain a bit bigger picture. From early childhood, we are kids and looking outside and they're just like free. They been kind of unsupervised and they're spontaneous and there's so much joy in them, right? They're just kind of reactive to life and responding and they're playing with life. And slowly but surely, the society, the parents and everything else, and kind of encourages us to create these habitual patterns in us, how I should respond, how I should speak, how I should have facial expression, how I should this, so we develop these layers upon layers upon layers of those habitual patterns. So let's maybe just call them, for simplicity, like a supervisor. Then, as you get older, they completely you completely migrated in your head. You your body is just purely mechanical to get you from point A to B, and you run by that supervisor. It's very seldom that in our life we actually can experience again what it means to be supervisor free. One good example would be of that embodied experience, just being in the body, not supervising it from your head. Perhaps when you have a sexual intercourse, it's probably a bad idea to try to supervise the process because you're not doing very well. But it allows us to take a complete break from the supervisor and embody ourselves. So kind of similarly, when you're doing any exercise, in this regard, talking about our form of high intensity strength training exercise, when you're trying to do it from the supervisor, from your head, there is force with it. You're pushing yourself through it, right? And, the supervisor knows how it should feel, in the next couple inches, how it should feel in the next rep and so on and so forth. And, maybe it doesn't mind the first rep or two, but when the lactic acid builds up and, it really minds it and it's just it hates it. And then but still doing it in force. And then you're still doing it and then you're done, but you also deplete it, not just physically, but mentally as well doing this kind of workout. Now, the other way of doing it is focusing on the experience. So the key here, prioritizing not failure, not necessarily you shouldn't reach failure, you will reach failure, but you will get there from different perspective. Not not your time under load, because that's again, you're supervising, I need to get to the time under load. Is focusing on that's another thing we should talk a little bit about, maybe after I explain this. Focusing on the muscle that you're working, feeling the muscle that you're working, and trying to feel it with as much details as you can. So you prioritize an experience over the delivery. And so there is a supervised way, experiential way. In the experiential way, there is this quality of discovery. So you don't know what the next moment is going to feel like until you feel it. And when there is no anticipation, when you're doing from supervised, because you know how it's going to feel, even on some subconscious level. When there is no anticipation how the next moment is going to feel, there is nothing to supervise. So by returning to feeling the experience as deeply as you can, just feeling your muscle, and then there's anything else. You might feel like your head wants to tweak. Let it tweak, your hand. Allowing yourself, allow those experiences, particularly the muscle that you're working, kind of take over your full body experience. Like, so you're outside, you're not presenting to anyone anymore, this as if nobody is watching. So like you outside looks exactly how you feel on the inside. And then when you tuning into the experience and nothing else, and you just keep going, because, and what you find in that way, and this is the part where the deeper you get to that, closer you get to the failure, deeper you get to that deep relationship with your muscle and yourself, unsupervised, the more you feel the certain freedom. And that's where the joy comes from. You feel being unsupervised. You can feel there is like freedom behind it. And in fact, the funny part, you reach in failure, but part of you doesn't want it to stop. You won't move it because it feels so good. And then once you reach failure and you hand to it, and then you just like, you don't want it to stop, and then you let go. And you take a deep sigh, and there's this quality of when you sign it, like you letting go. You're like, and it's also quality of being completely unsupervised. And you stay there for 5-10 seconds, for as long as you can feel that just purity of that existence in you, being unsupervised, like, and then you go repeat it. So it's that kind of cueing is what allows us to develop this relationship with high intensity that is high quality, effective, mentally doesn't take as much energy, take you completely out of your head, so you quiet all the chatter in your head because you embody, so you focus on your embodied experience. And very importantly, those clients that get it and they want to come back, because you don't have that many choices these days to take a break from yourself, not just from the world around, but from yourself. So it has some exercises I can do that I've learned from Philip, how to demonstrate the supervisor. It's kind of has to be done one-on-one. And then, oh, that's interesting. And then and so it's super excited. And, this is how we are focusing today, because I just don't see how I would do it any other way, frankly.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think it's very clever. I think it's a very smart thing to have that as part of your unique proposition. And clearly it's highly valued. I was watching your testimonial videos on your website, which are fantastic. And the last testimonial is an older male, and he's like on cloud nine. I think he sounds like he's just had a workout,
Yeah. No, he didn't, but that's Philip. Okay. That's him.
Right.
The guy is genius. He actually, I know you live in Ireland. Sorry for interrupting you.
That's okay.
He does quite a bit of teaching in Ireland. So check his website, check his schedule. If he's near you, take one of his weekend workshops. It's
is that
changed
Philip?
my
Is that
life.
Philip Shepherd? Is that?
Yeah, that's him. Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay, got it. Cool. Yeah. No, I'll link to his stuff in the show notes, and I'll look him up. No, I found that very cool. And so this, another synonym for all of this is getting into flow, right? Which I think was made popular by Cheeks Sent Me High, and was it who wrote? God, I'm forgetting the book. I'm blanking on it. It's a book.
Mindful Athlete?
No, it's more
about basketball.
I'm thinking a more recent book about being in flow, about being superhuman, but it's gone from my head. I'll put it in the show notes. I will remember it. But it's to what you're saying, being in flow, being present is when we're most happy, right? When we're just on autopilot and we're just in the moment. And we experience this in all different contexts. I've experienced it in basketball. Whenever I've played basketball and I'm thinking too much about what I'm doing, or I'm getting anxious because I don't feel confident against my opponent or my coach or whoever, I just play like crap and I hate it. I actually completely hate the experience. Whereas as soon as I'm in flow, as soon as I'm just going through the motions, playing, having fun, which for me is in the context of basketball is cultivated through practice, because when you practice something enough, it does become just a habit, right? Then it's absolutely the most amazing experience ever. And obviously the same in training. Once you've been doing this training for a certain period of time and you've got great form and you know how to perform these exercises effectively and safely, it's really easy to slip into this mode. And I would challenge you on one thing, which is something I was trying to reconcile in my head is, you want to obviously, like you say about how you want the body to express the internal state, right? But at the same time, I'm assuming we want to have good form. So ideally the head should be neutral, and most certainly if you look at a Med-X machine, and Med-X is a good example because Med-X requires very little focus on form because the machines are so good that it makes it, easier just to focus on the effort. But there are still aspects of form we have to pay attention to. So is that just a case of, well, you have to practice the form first and then become better at becoming present, or how does that fit into all this in the format?
Yes. Yeah. So I totally agree. And that's where the assistance from us, from instructors, that's our job, is to watch your form. So let's a little bit talk about that part. You mentioned about the habit, right? Once you practice enough and, you have that kind of, it becomes part of your neurology. Your body knows by itself. Without you supervising it, without you, like what to do, how to do it. And, that just through practice. There is part in our brain. It's called nucleus basalis. And when it's activated, it produces certain neurotransmitter that facilitates connection, building more new connection within brain cells. So once activated and you have more that neurotransmitter, then essentially you learn faster and your experiences become a memory. That part in the brain is widely open until about age of 10, 11, and then it shuts off. So there's 3 ways to activate that, essentially to learn new experiences, new habits, is through new experiences, shock to the system, and focus attention. So this is where it kind of comes together, like what we do here as well, and the form. What I've learned is maybe when you work with younger athletes and younger demographic, it's not as big of an issue. But, our average client in the mid-40s, they're not super athletic, that's typical average, office workers. And what we see more and more, and it's so real, is when we're doing certain exercises, there is quite a bit of continuous overcompensation going on. And this is just habitual because, this is just part of everybody's neurology. They used to sit this way. They used to move, for the back exercise. They used to use the arms and the traps and not really feel the lats. They haven't felt the lats in years, haven't felt the rhomboids in years, and so on and so forth. They want to do chest press, and it's all about traps and arms. They're like shoulders. Yeah, exactly. So all that is being hardwired in people. Again, when you're younger and athlete, it's probably not an issue, but when you have, an average person, it is real. So what we explain to people is, this is not personal. This is just neurologically what your body knows what to do. So positioning somebody in, we think you have Med-X because it's fairly easy to maintain good form, but still you need to, and then you need to assist that person. Position it properly, let's say given the chest press. So keeping the shoulder down, chest high, giving all the cues, sufficient weight. And slowly, you need to reduce weight low enough. It's not about time under load at this point. We're going to take that person to failure, but perhaps it's going to be with lighter weight because we really want to go slowly and gently so the person really feels that it's about that muscle, nothing else. And when we're going slowly and gently, we meet that criteria of activating the nucleus basalis. We just activate it through this focus attention. And so the slow and gently we go, the faster people is going to learn. So maintain perfect form, feeling the muscle, and moving it slowly under control with that full attention on your muscle and the feelings and so forth. We are learning so much faster than trying to teach somebody just go fast. Because when you go fast, when we're missing that focus attention, that gentleness in the movement part, we're not really activating that part in the brain that produces those neurotransmitters. So to produce more of those neurotransmitters, you have to go slow. That kind of helps us to explain why I need to go slow, another reason, and explain the whole aspects of overcompensation, so using the right muscle, and then develop the proper technique. And as instructors, when we're observing the client, yes, we will stop client when we're using the wrong muscles, there is overcompensation going. So I'm talking about we would use those cues that we described, like experiential, to be in the flow, but it will be within the framework of perfect technique. We're still watching, just as our job to position a client so he can feel the muscle, she working. And once we know he feel the muscles, she's working, then within that framework, we take him through that experiential experience. But yeah, I totally agree. Maintain good form. It's a real issue, particularly if you focus more so on the movement than the experience itself. When you focus on the movement or even time under load, then you're more focusing on, the skill part of the exercise. It's like that power lifter. The main objective of power lifter is not to build strength, it's to demonstrate strength. So, he wants to be as skillful as possible to move that barbell from here to there. We know that there is, in any, strength training modality, there is skill and there is pure building strength part. So to me, focusing more on time under load or the movement itself, you're shifting more towards the skill part, because you just, you want to lift that weight, you want to do this, and you're versus just feeling the muscle and taking it to failure, with that kind of presence and flow and creating the stimulus, and purely focusing on that versus being more on the skill end of the spectrum.
This episode is brought to you by our sponsor, ARX. Are you looking to create a cutting-edge, high-intensity training facility? Are you confused on what equipment to use or how to separate yourself from the masses? Well, then ARX Fit might be the answer you're looking for. I asked Mike Polano from ARX a few questions about how ARX machines are challenging the status quo of the exercise industry around the globe. Mike, if you could, give the listeners a quick summary of why ARX is so different from the traditional machines or tools they're used to seeing in most exercise facilities.
ARX is totally different than anything you've seen before. This isn't just another weight stack machine. We've looked at the last 40 years of exercise technology and used that knowledge to create something entirely new. ARX uses a new form of resistance, a motor, and we pair that motor with computer software so that we can maximize the safety, effectiveness, and efficiency of your workouts. So you may be asking, okay, but how does ARX compare to weights? Traditional machines you see in gyms today are based on lifting metal weights and battling gravity. What people don't realize is that when you're forced to lift a static weight like this, one that doesn't adapt or change while you use it, you're underloading yourself rep after rep. And this unnecessarily limits your ability to make improvements. With ARX, we've taken a totally different approach. We removed weights and gravity from the equation altogether. Instead, ARX combines our patented motorized resistance with our custom computer software to provide you with the world's safest, most effective, and most quantified form of resistance training ever. When you train with ARX, you are training to your perfect level of resistance, both positively and negatively 100% of the time. No more guessing what weight to use. ARX does all of that for you, instantly and automatically. We'll also track and measure every second of every rep, so you can quantify all of your workouts to find out if you're improving and by exactly how much. Whether your goals are bigger muscles, increased strength, stronger bones, or just to look good in a bathing suit, ARX can help you achieve all of these and more, but do so in a fraction of the time it would take compared to traditional equipment. If you're looking for the most efficient, most effective, and most quantified piece of exercise equipment on the market today, then look no further than ARX.
Thanks, Mike. That all sounds really impressive. If you'd like to learn more about ARX, visit arxfit.com and mention that you heard about ARX on the Corporate Warrior podcast to receive an exclusive deal of $500 off shipping and installation off your ARX machines. The time under load should just express itself as a byproduct. It shouldn't be the focus, which is something that Drew was explaining to me, Drew Bay, I think last time we spoke, which was a bit of an aha moment for me because I've certainly been guilty of focusing too much on progression, on increasing my time under load, increasing my resistance, when that should really be an outgrowth of just very, very good form and training to muscular failure. Really enjoyed listening to what you were saying there about the neurotransmitter, the nucleus basalis, which is something I don't know much about, but it's fascinating. And it makes me think that, those three things you said, which create new neurotransmitters, new experiences, focusing full attention on one thing, being completely present in that regard. And then I think the third one was being in shock.
Being in shock, yeah.
And it occurred to me, I bet majority of people go through, their entire life not having any of those three things happen. Because especially in today's world where a lot of people have quite monotonous routines, they don't do anything uncomfortable, and they're always distracted because they're on their mobile phones all day, right?
Yeah, exactly. There's zero attention.
Yeah, and it makes me think. My best days are where I get up in the morning, I have a morning routine, I follow that to the letter, and then I just focus on my main task, my biggest, most critical task for my business, right? And I put my phone on airplane mode, and I don't even take it off airplane mode until after lunch, right? Those are my and I'm happy, because I'm just in flow. I'm just on task. Yeah. And it's whenever I don't do that and I get to 12 and I'm like, what have I done today? It's well, go figure, and I have a big reminder right now while we're talking. I have a big, my background, right, I'll read this to you. It's an Aristotle quote, and it says, happiness does not consist in pastimes and amusements, but in virtuous activities. And that's semi-related to what we're talking about.
Yeah, no, it is. I think you've been practicing presence maybe more so than you even realize.
Perhaps I'm trying. I've gone in and out of meditation in terms of sitting down and actually meditating. I've been through periods where I've done that for a few weeks straight, and then I haven't. But presently, haven't done it for a long time. But however, like you're saying, I find that my exercise is very much my meditation. So that's my excuse.
Yeah.
But no, this is fascinating. Is there any other benefits that come to mind in terms of this mindfulness strength training combination that you've seen in yourself or your clients at all? Health or performance or other?
It's hard. One thing that, in terms of producing the stimulus, the stimuli, we tend to go a little bit longer. For the time under load, tend to, because some clients who used to do it more from the head would stop too prematurely. But when they really focus on the experience, they can typically go way longer, and they go, wow, I never have done this before, and it actually felt so much better to do more. And so that kind of immediate benefit that comes to my mind. We're still fairly new. I'm developing this as I'm talking with you. It's still work in progress. We haven't done it long enough to observe some clear benefits outside of the gym, but I do know that just by the fact, I'll mention something quickly. Just by the fact that it really feels good to do this, people will do it not because they have to do it. They will do it because they want to do it. It's a big difference. I have to go to the gym because I need to get my workout once, twice a week. It needs to be done. And there is this, you soldiering yourself through it, right? Versus you're looking forward being there because you're looking forward to taking that break from yourself. So that will make a big difference long term on the business, but also on that person's life, because now they're actually doing it. They're taking a break from themselves and so forth. So a quick example of this also affecting people on personal level, just yesterday or the day before, the other day, I was training this client, and she's a chief executive, director in her company and so on and so forth. And then we did leg press, and then she's like, I can't. And she started crying. And she said, that all my life I was told that I need to be perfect. So everything I did to be perfect. This experience is sort of just bypassing, transcending your personality and just being present, being one with experience. It's so being unsupervised, essentially. It's scary. It's so new. It's unfamiliar. And she was crying. And so here we are not only, building strong bodies and improving people's quality of life and health and so on, we also trigger in people much deeper transformation, where at the beginning to realize that they've been operating by that supervisor, by the society, what they put on them and so on and so forth, and discovering there is the other part in them that they haven't felt in a long time. And so it's very powerful to me. So very, very powerful.
Yeah.
I think those combinations,
absolutely. That's right. It goes beyond obviously the physical. We're also focused on muscle mass and the health benefits, improvements to things like insulin sensitivity and bone mineral density and all the rest of it. But, talking to people like Melinda Hughes over at the Strength Shop, talking to Owen Dockham and countless others, it's very clear that this is hugely impactful and beneficial to people's lives. It could be the most productive thing they do all week, and reminds me, when I was at the Resistance Exercise Conference earlier this year, Dr. Michelle Seeger was presenting, and she's an author, I believe a researcher in motivation when it comes to exercise. And exactly what you're saying. She said people are far more likely to work out and exercise when we're able to bridge the gap in terms of allowing them to associate joy and feel good and a feel good experience during and straight after. Because if you say to someone, hey, if you do this 6 months, 12 months time, you'll have bigger muscles, a six pack, whatever. It just, for most people, it doesn't work because they have to associate a good feeling with the experience. Right. So I think that's huge for sure.
Yeah. So, we have this super effective, high intensity, Medics, in my opinion, the best commercially available, biomechanically equipped. And there's other brands, but, I think talking about commercially available. And adding this to it and taking people to failure through that path changes everything. You're still getting all the benefits, physical that high intensity offers, but at the same time, you're doing something, little bit deeper than that to yourself. And it's like, I don't know where it's going to take us, but I'm not going back. This is our future. This is how we're doing it.
Good for you.
I know that.
And just, I've got a couple questions around your equipment, your machines, before we wrap up. This is, I guess, a bit of a selfish question for me, because I've been looking, obviously, at acquiring Med-X or Delphex. Can you just tell us how many? I know you have a pretty big Med-X arrangement there. So tell me about your pieces. How many do you have? That kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. So we have around 30, I don't know, like 30, 31. 4 of them are medical Med-X, and the rest are Med-X and Delphex. And Delphex is German manufactured Med-X. Essentially, I have every Med-X piece that produced in the United States, with the exception of hamstring machine, seated hamstring machine. I have the prone one where you lay down on the stomach, but I don't have the one that's the only machine I don't have that Med-X manufactures. We have the rest of them. And I also brought 5 machines from Germany, Delphex. And if I had more budget, I would went with Delphex. And the reason for it, first of all, they look just a little bit more current. The shields look better. The upholstery looks better. It's much easier to adjust the seats. If you have, particularly if you have somebody, want to have access to the machine by him herself.
Okay.
Yeah, they just look, for the practical purposes, probably the same. But, if you are opening your own facility and you have a little bit of budget, just Delphex will look a little bit more, will make your place look a little bit more current. But I love them all. They're all amazing machines. But Delphex just a little bit more current.
Cool. Well, tell me about the, I get mixed answers about what's happening in terms of the production on both Med-X and Delphex, because it's my understanding that Med-X were no longer being manufactured, and the only way you could acquire them is on the secondary market, right?
Yeah.
But Delphex, I've spoken to Egger in Germany on email, if I'm saying his name correctly, and from what I understand, they kind of produce a small. They don't have a massive demand, but they do have a production capability. So they are producing new, or so do you want to elaborate? You probably know this way better than I do.
Yeah. So I talked, actually, I'm helping Egert with a small project here in a couple of weeks. So I've been talking with him. And when I opened Net, Delphix were still selling the equipment outside of the Kiza Training franchise because it's partly owned by Werner Kizer, so by Kiza Training.
Right.
About a year ago, they shut it down. It's only now can be sold to Kiza Training franchise. And I double checked with Egert because you mentioned you were looking at it and said, are you now selling to outside? No, we're still only selling to the franchise. And he's trying to set up something, different manufacturer outside of Germany. But he told me he's not there yet. So we kind of screwed. If you open, another facility, where do we buy? If I want to, brand new Medex, Delphix, like where do we buy it? And it's so unfortunate because it's such a high quality equipment. It should be someone's social responsibility to keep this equipment going. But I know in the end it's business, right? If there is no marketing, there is no profits, and like they're gonna. But I think for guys like us, we kind of stuck at this moment with secondary market. I don't know what's going on with Medex in the United States recently. I know at one point that was the situation you described, but I haven't talked to them in a while, so I'm not sure what they're doing.
Okay. So just to clarify what you're saying, so I understand. So Egert's saying that currently the existing production can only provide to Kiza franchises.
That's correct.
But he's setting up something new maybe next year where he'll be able to provide to other businesses.
Yeah, so I don't know the timeline, but he said he was working on a solution of producing those machines outside of the current.
Okay. Yeah, because we've been going back and forth on email, and he basically said that to me, but I don't, because this is going to sound harsh, but it's not supposed to, because obviously English is his second language. I have to kind of decipher his emails to make sure that I understand, and we go back and forth clarifying things.
And he's German, he's like straightforward, right? Like no filters.
Yeah, you're right, German, very direct. I actually like that. I'm actually, I actually really enjoy talking to Germans. And I've been to Berlin, and I actually really like the people. I actually love that whole focus on effectiveness and efficiency. But no, it's interesting. It's useful to understand this because it's just it's not easy to figure out how these machines differ at all. And until you have your own personal experience with it and what works for your clients, for you, then until then, how can you know? Yeah, because I mean, from what you're saying, Delphix is basically identical, but slightly better in terms of being a bit more modern and better upholstery and all of that.
And they're saying there, some exercise machines like a neck machine, they improve the cams. I mean, the same person who was designing Medex is sitting in Zurich in headquarters and designed Delphix.
Right.
I forgot his name. So they are improving them. Like they're probably some changes by mechanically as well to make it, better than Medex. But for like you and I, I wouldn't be able to tell the difference.
It's funny. Yeah. It's funny, right? Like you go on about how you mentioned there about how it's, a business at the end of the day. And obviously machine and equipment businesses are incredibly expensive to start, and grow. I was just on the phone the other day to, Jason, the CMO at ARX, and he was explaining to me that the trials and tribulations of ARX and that them starting their business, and it's just like I don't envy them. It's a very, very hard business model to crack, and all credit to them. They've done exceptionally well, and I'm very as you know, they're a sponsor of the show, and I'm very much behind that and a believer in what they're doing. But when I think about it, I think, well, I know that there's tons of high intensity training gym owners like you and, in the future myself, who would love to be able to purchase Medex at a reasonable price, but would love for the production to continue and have that option to buy new. And, but then I think about it further and I'm like, well, actually, at the end of the day, high intensity strength training facilities are still a minority, right? And do the rest of the health and fitness market really care? Especially when you got the likes of Hammer Strength and Pendulum and all these other brands and companies that are now producing kit, because there's a huge, enormous underappreciation for the quality of Medex at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, totally agree. The only people that still care as far as on the manufacturer side and actually keep developing, keep improving, creating new machines is Delphix. Because, they have, Kiza Training, they have, last time I checked, over 150 facilities. Wow. From the book I read, I think the revenue in like 150, 160 million euros a year. So it's a real business for them. And that's the only machines they use. It's like muscle care, kind of, the idea, and Medics, Delphix, that's all they do, right? Mm-hmm. So they're the only one that I know today that actually take serious care and give it proper attention to this. And it's so unfortunate that they decided to stop selling into outside market. And I because I know Werner personally is asking about it because Werner
twist his arm.
And well, like personally he said, like, talk to me when you need it, but we'll see. I don't need it yet. But what he said is there were brands that were pretending to be Kiza Training, but they're not, and were affecting them negatively as a brand. So they're kind of, for that reason, they stopped doing it. But yeah, they're the only ones that I know take it seriously on a like manufacturer production line level. Because they have to support all those facilities. And if you've been to the one in UK, they're That's huge. Right. They have 60, 80 machines. And they have, 150 facilities like that? So they need to keep the manufacturer going. So maybe one day they'll make it available for all of us.
Yeah, I was watching one of your training demonstrations on your website, and I was looking at, you using the pieces that I used to use in London. Obviously, sadly, Kiza closed down in London. But I miss it. I miss the fact that you can micro load it so easily with a small, poundage plates. It's I ponder it a lot. Andrei, before we wrap up, I'd love to hear. I mean, you've obviously been operating for a while now. I'd love to hear if you've got any tips for the new high intensity strength training business owners. I have some listeners who are all over the world, in fact, and some in the UK who are thinking about starting out, some in the US. I guess those are the two main places, Australia as well, and all over. But people that are just, they're inspired. They're like you. And Luke talks about this. He says about how we become passionate about something when we learn about it. When we learn more about it, as opposed to being passionate and then that driving the interest in learning. And I think he's right. I think you see that a lot in people like you and me. We had careers doing something completely different, and then you come across this stuff and you get so into it, and then you're like, right, this is what I want to do. This happens all the time. So what advice do you have to those new inspired high intensity training business owners?
Yeah, a good question. So when you ask me, and I'm just thinking, okay, what the best advice I could give? I would say, and again, what comes to my mind right now is don't lose your passion for the simplicity of the high intensity strength training. And when you still maintain that passion and believe in it, your clients, they will see it. You're going to sell them not because of how much they're going to see the passion. This is I get quite often when, especially clients start out, they see like they kind of bind into you more so than everything else. So when they see that passion and you believe in it, walk into the gym, when you have a small studio, 10 machines, that's what we do. I have, 3,000 square foot studio, so it looks like a gym site. And then they start questioning where you have treadmill, where are your treadmills, where is this, then it's kind of harder to break that, mentality of, no, you don't need it. But once, they come and I give them like 1 hour introductory session and they just all comes from passion. I never try to sell anything. All I'm trying to do, listen to this story. And I'm trying to see how I can help with this amazing method, this amazing machine to help them. And then they sell, and then you create like easy entry package, like the way we do here. We just, okay, you like this, try it for 4 more sessions, no other commitments at reasonable rate. And then from there, if somebody is serious about it, they will sign up. If not, it's not for them. It's not for everyone. So I would say, number one, don't lose your excitement for high intensity. Keep it. There's so much, even within the high intensity, the people want to do it differently, right? But that sometimes, and I had it with multiple instructors here, is what I feel when I allow, and I used to allow to do that, those instructors, in the end of the day, they lose your brand. and they more marketing, branding themselves, not than your place. So to me, there is, as you know, there is millions ways to build muscle. This is not the only way. The benefits of our way, because it's time efficient, it's very safe, and it's super effective. That's what I sell. But there is, so many ways to build muscle. And I tell my clients, this is how we do it. So stay true to the brand, stay true to this method. Don't get distracted with what other methods, because they all will work to a point. And if you, don't lose yourself into, that, because there's somebody who's expert in this. There's always something new, always, and then you're just going to be chased, and then you're just going to become like everybody else. So stay true to it. We know it works. We know there's science behind it. We've done it for a while. It works. We don't need any other validation, and just, keep it. Stay persistent. Stay present. At one point when I started to learn how to live this way, another decision I made. I decided that I'm going to make business decisions that are based on enthusiasm. They come from something that moves me. I'm enthusiastic versus from fear. Fear meaning it's money-based decision. That's not enough sale. I have to make sale, blah, blah. So then when you create a fear-based decision, you might make those money, but it's a short-sighted, because at the end of the day, it's like more about your benefits and less about the client benefits. But when you make a decision that is more driven by excitement within you, that like everybody wins from that decision. So try to listen to your heart, to your body, and trust those decisions more than trusting the decisions that you're making from fear base. So.
Here. Well said. No, I think that's an excellent point to wrap it up on. And I love how you brought it home. You brought it back to the mindfulness. Very good.
Well, that's all I think about.
No, that's excellent. Andrei, what's the best way for people to find out more about you?
So we have a website at newelementtraining.com. Our email that I'm the only one that has access to it is info@newelementtraining.com. I should say that in a couple months we'll be moving location, and I will be rebranding our place. I'm working on a couple names, don't know what they're going to be yet. So if you are looking for New Element Training, but it takes you to a different place, it's still us.
Cool.
I just want to create a name that is a little bit more explanatory to actually what we do, and less abstract.
I understand that. I think that's quite
But
smart.
as of now, it's still New Element Training.
So with that in mind, to find the blog post for this episode, please go to corporatewarrior.co/Andrei, because if you put the company name in there, might not be relevant. So that's ANDREI, corporatewarrior.co/Andrei to get the show notes for this one. And for all episodes, please go to corporatewarrior.co/podcast. And until next time, guys, thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed that. Before you head off, head on over to corporatewarrior.co/ebook to get a bunch of goodies, including number 1, a free ebook of podcast transcripts with some of my top guests like Dr. Doug McGuff, Drew Bay, and Bill Simone on how to optimize muscle gain, fat loss, and overall health in an efficient, effective, and sustainable way. Number 2, a free high-intensity training business checklist to help you get more clients in your business. And number 3, a free high-intensity training Google Sheet to help you track and improve your training progress. Head on over to corporatewarrior.co/ebook now and enter your email address for instant access. This episode is brought to you by ARX, the most innovative, efficient, and effective all-in-one exercise machines I have ever seen. I was really impressed with my ARX workout. The intensity and adaptive resistance was unlike anything I've ever experienced. I love how the machine enables you to increase the negative load to fatigue target muscles more quickly, and I love how the workouts are effortlessly quantified. The software tracks maximum force output, rate of work, total amount of work done, and more in front of you on screen, allowing you to compete with your previous performance to give you and your clients real-time motivation. The ARX uses a computer-controlled motor to give you the exact amount of resistance your clients need 100% of the time. This means that the resistance can never become dangerous, is intuitive and simple to use, and can provide you with all of the results you and your clients are looking for in a fraction of the time. ARX is highly effective and efficient in delivering all of the benefits of exercise, including increased strength, muscle mass, cardiovascular conditioning, bone mineral density, and injury recovery. As well as being utilized by many high-intensity trainers to deliver highly effective and efficient workouts to their clients, ARX comes highly recommended by world-class trainers and brands, including Bulletproof, Tony Robbins, and Ben Greenfield Fitness. To find out more about ARX and get $500 off install when you place an order, please go to arxfit.com and mention Corporate Warrior in the How Did You Hear About Us field. So again, to get $500 off install when you order, head on over to arxfit.com and enter Corporate Warrior in the How Did You Hear About Us field.